Dark fantasy is a subgenre of fantasy literature and books that combines elements of traditional fantasy with darker themes, atmospheres, and narratives. Dark fantasy author Birger, yeah, that's me, will now tell you about 5 themes that summarizes what a dark fantasy is, as well as my take on each of these themes. Number 1. Dark fantasy settings are often bleak, oppressive, and filled with danger. They may include decaying cities, haunted forests, or otherworldly realms, inhabited by malevolent forces. Therefore, number 1 is gritty and grim settings. I love this part of dark fantasy. In fiction, I've always felt a bit more drawn to the darker episodes or parts of a story, like episodes with haunted mansions or dangerous worlds of different kinds. And I think this stems from the sense of mystery, danger, creepiness, and tough challenges that the dark setting creates. That sense that you really need to keep yourself on your toes in order to survive. I really love that. Focusing on surviving and on the light within the darkness also brings a small sense of hope, which I think is very important to dark fantasy. Number 2. Protagonists and antagonists in dark fantasy are often morally complex and may possess both heroic and villainous qualities. They may struggle with inner demons, make morally questionable decisions, or have dark pasts, which makes number 2 morally ambiguous characters. In my own dark fantasy stories, which are inspired by spirituality and in which you, the reader, play the protagonist, I prefer to keep my main characters good-natured and focused on the light. I focus on keeping my antagonists and the world itself as both dark and morally complex. Number 3. Dark fantasy frequently incorporates elements of violence, horror, and supernatural terror. It may feature graphic descriptions of combat, gruesome creatures, or psychological horror. And naturally, that makes number 3, violence and horror. I'm a big horror fan, and in my own stories, I love featuring horror in the form of areas that have very little light, or that are completely dark, with gruesome monsters and threats lurking in the darkness. Violence-wise, both psychological and physical, however, I try to keep less focus on that, and especially when it comes to what befalls the main characters. Secondary characters, however, may experience completely different things. Number 4. But before that, consider subscribing to Birger Tales and join the Tales Tribe community for even more dark fantasy as well as traditional fantasy to enhance your reading time with book recommendations, stories, ambience for reading, and more. You'll also get a potato, and that's always something, right? And remember the surprise that I hinted about at the beginning of this video? You'll get it before this video is done. Number 4. Dark fantasy often explores themes of corruption, decay, and the darker aspects of human nature. It may depict societies in decline, rulers corrupted by power, or characters grappling with their own inner darkness. Therefore, number 4 is themes of corruption and decay. I really like this aspect of dark fantasy too, since both corruption and decay makes you feel like you're in a completely different universe, a universe in which you're not supposed to be in. Like the sense of exploring a forbidden and abandoned building in the middle of the night that could collapse at any given moment. Number 5. Dark fantasy may address taboo subjects such as death, madness, addiction, or taboo desires. It may push the boundaries of traditional fantasy storytelling to explore darker and more disturbing themes, which makes number 5, exploration of taboo subjects While I avoid having my main characters gravitate towards taboo subjects, I may feature antagonists and secondary characters that do. I do, however, exclusively avoid taboos of sexual nature, because I find such taboos too disturbing, and I personally feel that they have no place in my stories. This video's surprise is close at hand! But before that, if my spiritual dark fantasy stories has sounded intriguing to you, then check out free stories and previews in the link in the description or in the pinned comment below, or just click this card up here. And just before the surprise, I want to ask a Tales Tribe question. Which of these 5 themes of dark fantasy books do you like the most, and why? Comment your answer below. And now to the surprise! To explore the world of dark fantasy even further, watch this video next for dark fantasy book recommendations. Enjoy! There's a lot to explore, so I think you like it.